So what if the universe wasn't just this random collection of stars and planets? What if instead it was a sophisticated operating system? We're about to dive into a framework that suggests exactly that. A reality that might be governed by a readable, maybe even a predictable source code. The framework we're exploring today proposes that very thing. It's called the dual caustic universe, or DCU for short. Now, that dual part, it refers to this fundamental split right at the heart of creation. And caustic? Well, that describes how light and energy get focused and patterned by this split. Look, it's a huge idea for sure, but it's one that tries to bring science and scripture together into one single coherent system. At its absolute core, this model maps these giants of physics, we're talking Newton, Tesla, and Einstein, onto a really unique cosmological structure that it says comes directly from the Quran. The point isn't to replace one with the other. No, not at all. It's to show that they might be describing the very same system, just from totally different points of view. The whole DCU framework is built on this fundamental duality. You can think of it like a car, right? Science describes how the engine works, the mechanics, the physics. But the signs, the phenomena, they describe why we're even on the journey, the purpose, the destination. So the argument here is that these aren't in conflict. They're just two sides of the same coin, and you need both to get the full picture of reality. Okay, so where does it all kick off? Well, according to this framework, the entire system is born from one single moment of separation, a primal split. And this foundational event, this first action and reaction, is mapped directly onto the deterministic clockwork physics of Isaac Newton. In this system, the number 2 isn't just a number. It's the engine of duality itself. It represents what physicists sometimes call a symmetry break, that absolutely crucial moment when a perfectly balanced, unified state divides. And that division is what creates the tension, the potential difference, that you need for literally anything to exist at all. This initial split is anchored right in the Qur'ānic story of Adam and Iblīs. Adam represents submission to a command, the receptive form, like clay. Iblīs, on the other hand, represents refusal, that reactive energy, fire. Now, in this framework, this isn't just theology. It's seen as the archetypal blueprint of the two opposing potentials that have to exist for a system to even be born. And this is where the framework draws a straight line to classical physics, specifically Newton's third law. The divine command is the action, Iblīs' refusal is the equal and opposite reaction. It suggests that for the universe to work as a system of cause and effect, the potential for both obedience and defiance had to be coded in right from the very beginning. So, if the universe starts with this deep, fundamental tension, this primal split, how does that tension get processed? How does it turn into the incredibly complex reality we see all around us? The framework says the answer lies in a cosmic rhythm, an oscillatory engine, and it's symbolized by the work of Nikola Tesla. We've all heard this famous quote from Tesla, right? We'll hear it's reinterpreted. It's not seen as just numerology or some kind of mysticism. It's viewed as a description of a fundamental process, an engine that oscillates between potential, manifestation, and completion. It's the very rhythm that drives creation forward. And here's how that process is said to work. It all starts with the 3, which represents the source, an initial command, or a field of pure potential. Then, that potential gets processed through the 6, which acts as a buffer or a medium. This is where it oscillates and starts to take form in our spacetime. And finally, it resolves into the 9, a state of completion, where that initial potential has stabilized into its final, manifest form. This is the rhythm that turns a command into a creation. Okay, so after that initial split and the rhythmic oscillation, we get the ultimate resolution, a state of completion, a profound unity. And this final phase is mapped by the framework onto the physics of none other than Albert Einstein. Within this model, the number 7 is huge. It signifies the ultimate completion of a cycle. Think about it. If that primal split of 2 created a kind of cosmic question, submission or refusal, then the 7 is the final answer. It's the point where all the potential energy created in that initial Adam-Iblīs split gets fully resolved, all accounted for in the system's ledger. And this state of completion is mapped directly onto Einstein's most famous equation, E equals mc squared. But why? Well, because this equation reveals the ultimate unity behind what looks like a duality, mass and energy. It shows they're just interchangeable aspects of a single reality. The framework puts it beautifully. This is where the cosmic books are balanced, and the ledger closes at 7.
So we have Newton's primal split, Tesla's cosmic rhythm, and Einstein's final unity. How in the world do these pieces fit together? The framework proposes a grand architecture that combines them all into a single, cohesive operating system for reality itself. This is presented as the master blueprint. Let's just break it down real quick. The entire structure is founded on two: that principle of duality. It's stabilized by a three-part process, the three. The whole system is built up in 7 distinct layers, representing its completion. And get this, all of it is powered by a dual oscillatory engine, that 3-6-9 rhythm from Tesla, running in parallel.
So the system runs through 2 interlocking but very different fields. First, you have a sound field. Now, this isn't literal sound. It represents the ordered, deterministic, predictable universe governed by classical physics, like Newton's laws. Woven into that is a light field, which represents the quantum realm, probabilistic, uncertain, and just shimmering with potential. They're like 2 different modes of operation for the exact same universal code.
And this shows the ultimate claim of the framework, that a single set of laws governs reality at every single scale. I mean, just look at the particle column for a second. You've got the nucleus, described as nar, a principle of fire or force. Then the electron, described as nur, a principle of light or information. And they're both mediated by the orbit, which acts as a buffer. The framework argues this exact same pattern, force, information, and buffer, repeats at the scale of the planet and even the human, where the body is the force, the soul is the information, and taqwa, or God consciousness, is that mediating buffer. It's wild. And the source material is very, very clear on its own position. It doesn't end with a proposition that's up for debate. No, it concludes with a statement of witness, basically claiming to be a direct reading of a system that already exists and is fully operational right now. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This framework, whether you accept it or not, suggests that reality itself is a form of information, a coherent message. So the ultimate question then isn't just about what the universe is, but whether we are finally learning how to read it.